afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's FOA Live. Jennifer Katrulya, co-president of Family Office Association, joined as always, or most of the time when we're fortunate, by Rush Olney. Rush, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jennifer. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time.
And whether you're live with us today, which will be a treat, we're going to share a little bit about today's conversation. We're very excited and introduce our guest shortly. Or you're listening to this in the recorded version. We are delighted to spend the time with you. We thank you for taking the time. And if you are live with us, please remember that if you enter anything in the comment section, we will see it during the call today. And we look forward to either calling you out and to say hello, answering questions if you have them, and making sure that this is a very interactive call. So today, super excited. We've been talking about on a number of the recent FOA Live shows about the new Family Office Association peer communities. And so one of them, and some of you know, the way I originally met Rush was actually when he became a client. We both wear another hat, which we don't normally talk about on these shows, but where I am a partner with Citron Cooperman Advisors, and Rush is a consultant with the firm. But we first met when he became a client and introduced me to the world of EB5 and the EB5 visa process. And so now we've worked together for a few years. Rush, I'm going to stay with a few years because I started to count off too many years in another setting last week. So I'm now revamping how I approach a timeline. But for several years now, and in doing so, Rush, I've been primarily for the last several years on the business side for EB5 businesses, and hadn't really had the chance to deep dive with you into learning about what life is like for the families going through the process, for the investors in these EB5 programs. And so more recently, Rush kindly introduced me to a family going through this, and it was a real kind of a wake-up call, or something I hadn't thought about, all of the dramatic changes that families go through when they're navigating this journey. And so we really thought about that because Family Office Association is designed to be a community that supports, is families helping families. And one of the, in speaking with, and some of you may know if you're listening to this, or we'll have the chance to speak with her down the road, but her name is Liz. I'll just stick with first name, I think, on here for right now. But Liz is kind enough to share with us her story about the EB5 process and the steps in navigating that and the challenges, and everything from getting credit to making the move to moving cash and just buying a home, everything you need to do when you come to the States, the stress of that, and a lot of things we take for granted. But also we've encountered a number of situations where, through maybe less than stellar access to pre-immigration planning, tax planning, financial planning, we've been seeing families really get some surprises that I hope we can help avoid. So one of the things we're really excited to do through Family Office Association, is step in and help. And so we're going to talk today. We're going to share a presentation, a slide deck, which is a little bit unusual for us on this show. But Rush and I are going to walk through the process and do a deeper dive. Rush is going to lead that part of the EB5 process, some complexities associated with the program, and really an overview of the program. But we're also going to talk about just what I've been learning and what Rush has been sharing about what families are experiencing, and talk about how we're going to help with that from an FOA standpoint. And then very excited to introduce Connor Southwell from Citron Cooperman, who is a partner in the firm's international tax services practice. And so he has over a decade of experience working with high net worth individuals and families, and also with this EB5 program and a number of the complexities that we'll be talking about. So as I have tripped over that unusually, so coming into this show, welcome again, everyone. And Rush, any thoughts just based on your experience before we kind of open up that deck and It'll be, again, a little bit more of a technical call maybe than we usually have, but excited about the sharing today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the intro, Jennifer, and you're spot on with sort of the evolution of the discussions that we've had with EB5 and working to find a solution or something that can help families in that move. And it was really some of the early conversations with people who were immigrating through the EB5 process were, I don't want to say they seemed like an everyday process for somebody, myself, who's grown up here and lived here, and who sort of understands the lay of the land. But it was things as simple as credit cards, establishing credit, a driver's license, just a myriad of things that we it's just commonplace for people who've grown up in the system that is America. And when these families are picking up their businesses, their lives completely and totally, and then coming here and trying to pick a place to live and to put down roots, it really started to strike a nerve, as I was sharing with you, for both of us, as to how we could help mitigate some of that stress, not just through the technical application, but through more of a community approach. And we're working in FOA and with FOA, and it really seemed like a great fit, because most of the people, or a lot of the people that are coming over in this program, are typically successful entrepreneurs, small business owners, large business owners, and it seemed like a really good fit. And then the uptake internally by Resource Council and other members was really great, because it really can round out our members, and bring a lot more international know-how, both about business and community. So it seemed like a great fit, and I'm very excited to see how it develops.
Awesome. So with that, in a moment, we're going to welcome Connor to the show. And whether you're listening to it live in whatever platform you may be on as you're listening, or again, as a follow-up recording or podcast, we are going to be mentioning, we're going to be showing a slide deck, and we also are going to be mentioning contact information to reach out if you're interested. And we know a number of you have already been in touch. We've been having some calls about this with some of you, so thank you. But whatever questions you may have, please message us directly if you want to get in touch, and don't run it through the comments, whatever your preference is. And we will make sure that we follow up with more information just about the communities as well. So we are going to invite Chloe, if you don't mind, we'll bring in Connor to join us, and then also kick off the presentation deck.
And one quick note as Connor comes in, we're kind of playing whack-a-mole, because we noticed that there was feedback when all three of us are unmuted. So if you see the mute popping on and off, hopefully we'll have Connor come on and I'll mute if it starts giving us feedback. But if you see that,
once in a while we get that on here, but yeah, so we're going to play with it a little bit. Once in a real while we get it. So Connor, welcome. So Connor Southwell to the show today. And Connor, thank you very much for joining in. I know based on what we just said that we're going to play the hopping around with the sound for a moment. So Rush and I'll both mute in a moment, so that hopefully you can share a bit about yourselves. And then we're going to kick off kind of a two-part. We'll run through a little bit of information quite quickly about the FOA side of the house here and what we're talking about, and then jump over and put on our Citron Cooperman hats, and Connor, with you, walk through really some of the support, both on the technical side and some of the concierge services that families have been asking to access. So with that, I'm going to we will safely mute out. And Connor, if you want to step in and just share a bit about yourself with everyone, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks for letting me participate in the webinar and share some of my experiences in the pre-immigration tax planning space as it relates to EB-5 investors. So as Jen said, I'm a partner at Citron Cooperman in the International Tax Services Group. I work primarily on the private client side, so with wealthy families, individuals and their companies, occasionally trusts. And I think I do primarily inbound tax planning. So it fits very neatly within the EB-5 context because we have people who are not U.S. citizens or residents coming to the United States, often for an extended period. So there are myriad issues to deal with on the tax side.
Awesome. Well, Connor, thank you again very much for joining in, and we're going to jump in and run through a little bit on the FOA side, but then quickly come back to you and really looking forward to the sharing. So thank you very, very much. So Rush, you and I, we mentioned briefly the, from the family perspective, family side of things. And so what I thought we'd do is just run through kind of what some of those complexities look like. And so, Chloe, if we can hop to our next slide, one of the, and actually the next one. So Rush and I, you've met, and we'll go one more to our first, and talk a little bit about the challenges in the pre-immigration planning. We're going to touch on them lightly here, just as kind of a laundry list. And then Rush is going to take a deeper dive into the discussion about, what is EB-5, the overview of it, the current program. And then we'll turn over to Connor on the tax side. So I'm going to, and certainly, again, we're happy to make these available. But from an overview perspective, the complexities of the EB-5 visa process include the legal and regulatory navigation in terms of, families just figuring this out and trying to get through all the legal, accounting, wealth management assistance. The big takeaway, I think, from that conversation has been that families just really are not either aware of the level of conversations that should be had when going through the pre-immigration process, or don't have access to it by trying to work with the practitioners you've always worked with in your home, at home. And as a result, either not getting all of the information you need or getting incorrect information. So an important takeaway from this conversation is that unless you are actually working with someone who specializes in EB-5, when you're going through those pre-immigration conversations, it may very well be that things are being left out or omitted, not through anybody's ill intent, just not getting to the people who need it most. So if you're a family contemplating this process or going through it, there are a number of things that may prompt you to want to reach out and get more assistance. From financial preparedness, I'm going to step aside on that, but just assessing financial readiness. One of the things, Rush, that as through the conversations you've introduced me to most recently, families who may come into this thinking that they've got this financially worked out, and then learn that the cost of doing a number of these things, or of being able to move cash and a number of other considerations, can be very, very overwhelming and actually quite difficult in a number of settings. So that kind of ties into certainly the emotional preparation, and then the cultural as well. But preparing for the adjustments and making sure that you have access to the emotional support needed for family members, especially children who are going to pick up on a lot of these things, but also go through it themselves as they enter a new environment. Education and career disruption, finding suitable schools for children, finding employment for those who want and or need it when they get here, it can also be very daunting. And so as we go on to the next slide, we'll talk about the arrival challenges and what that can look like. So housing and settlement, very closely tied in many cases to just not having a credit score and not having credit history when coming to the US, and then having to find affordable and suitable housing in a desirable location, learning about the areas of the country where other families have been most likely to settle, and connecting with other families. Healthcare system complexity, understanding the system, including the insurance coverage, finding providers, et cetera, can be quite different and new for family members. Social and community integration, again, building that social network and just getting connected to others, just within a community in general, but also helpful and ideal if you can connect with other families going through the journey. And then financial system adaptation. So getting just into the financial system and being an active part of, and being able to leverage the things you need. Again, kind of tying back to that credit history is really a big problem, and having the score you need to be able to get the banking relationships and other things that are important. So Rush, as we go through I know you're going to share a lot more information, but if we hop to the next slide about that cultural adjustment, and if you want to run through, I know this is something again that we've learned a lot about.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so several things again that have come up. Language barrier being one. I would say that's a lesser adjustment and integration period, because the majority of investors that I've worked with personally have at least had some grasp of the English language. However, that's not always the case. Cultural norms, social etiquettes, and I've even put business etiquette in there. Each country, it's open to all, almost all countries. I'll say that, and there's an allocation for each country, and when you think about it, each country is going to have significantly different or unique social etiquettes, cultural norms, business etiquette and norms, along with the tax, accounting, and so those typically have been the biggest sticking points. The social norms are kind of where FOA would step in and try to allow them to be integrated into a like-minded community of business professionals and entrepreneurs, where they can build social relationships and find their footing there. And then a group not unlike Citrin Cooperman could come in and help with what I call the nuts and bolts portion of it, and really helping link and piece together a successful plan for you to get integrated legally and hopefully as financially painless as possible.
Just step in there to make sure that we don't cause any angst for anyone, and Connor included, that when we say get you integrated from a legal standpoint, you're going to rely on your legal professionals. We're going to, Citrin Cooperman would step in and help with the accounting and tax planning, and then certainly involving your wealth management and other professionals.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. I just know if tax becomes a big enough issue, it then can become a legal issue. But education systems, a lot of people using EB5 use it specifically for access to US-based secondary education, employment and career adaptation. I would almost put that in lump all of it together with understanding how to not immigrate immigrate and move here with your family, but also with your business, because a lot of people are bring their business and their IP and their resources to the States to set up shop, and so I would put that in with the career adaptation, and then on isolation. Again, I think that is an issue or problem, but again, hopefully FOA can kind of stem some of those issues or some of that angst.
Well, and so with that, we're gonna move through a number of slides now quite quickly. Again, a lot of this is meant to be informational and reference for everybody, but the heart of this from an FOA perspective is super excited to announce, and we did this in an announcement in our newsletter previously, but the FOA membership for EB5 investor families. And so what we are excited to make available is a complimentary FOA. It's a customized membership for EB5 families. And this is to really give you an opportunity to participate in FOA, get to meet other members of the community, including other individuals going through the EB5 process. And we'll announce, specifics about this program, but the email on the bottom, if you are an EB5 investor family, as we go through the rest of this conversation, if you are interested in learning more, please send a note to that communications@familyofficeassociation.us email, and we will be happy to share more information. So you have access to a leadership council, an opportunity to apply for a seat on that council if you're interested. There are a number of events that we'll be holding online and in person for those who have made the move, but something, again, that we're super excited to share. So again, I'm going to jump pretty quickly into Rush, just since we know that most of the families going through this are at some level educated about the program. We'll do a quick gloss over and then turn over to Connor on the next several slides here again, which are primarily for information. But now as we switch over to our Citron Cooperman hats, we've got Connor, Rush, and myself who are going to run through some information here. And so, Rush, if we want to kick off on what that overview program is, we don't, again, present many slides on here. So I'm going to ask Rush that question. I know, Rush, suddenly, and Chloe, this may put you off the hook, put me in a seat where I can advance the slides. So I imagine you may be able to do that on yours as well. If not, I'm just special, and I've got you.
Yeah,
so
I think you have the power. So
perfect. All right, thanks, Chloe.
I will cover at the speed that you do slides in. So the EB5 program was implemented in 1990. It was designed to set up 10,000 immigration visas and temporary green cards each year. It had been in place since 1990. In 2002, it was a part of another bill that didn't get passed and was basically suspended for 6 or 8 months. They went in, rehabbed the program, made new requirements, and sort of cleaned things up. And now we have EB5 again. Are you advancing? All right.
Usually,
so
Connor, just so you know, so we put you at ease. Very, very conversational show, and so we want to make sure we do keep it open for everybody. And again, because we don't, thank you, everyone. I know I'm getting some direct messages in, and I appreciate you attending and your questions, and we will definitely follow up. And fortunately, this is usually a very direct chat, so we're not advancing through a lot of slides, but I got you, Rush.
Okay. So as of March 2024, the minimum investments, depending if you're in the target employment area or not, are 1.05 million or 800,000. There's some other benefits to TEA, specifically rural areas, that have to do with where you sit in the queue for getting into the system and getting into the program. Discuss that with your immigration attorney. They'll know everything about that and significantly more than me. Benefits for investors, citizenship, temporary green card, freedom of movement, access to education and employment in the U.S. and U.S. territories, and then business ventures. So along with working with an EB5 shop or a group that specifically sources investments for EB5 investors, There is also the opportunity for investors to either purchase their own or bring a business over that meets the minimum requirements. And again, these are high-level. Immigration attorney is going to be a significantly better source for the specifics of those. And the benefits to the U.S. economy, again, it in general has been a very beneficial program, which up until 2008, 2009 had very little participation. The financial crisis ended up spurring the use of EB-5 by larger developers and builders. And since 2008, 2009, they have typically maxed out the 10,000 visas each year. So that has in part put a significant amount of capital into projects, and one of the stipulations is each investor's investment has to create 10 U.S. jobs for 2 years, and those are all done with economic studies by regional centers, which we can get into on another call. But it's all tracked and approved through and by USCIS. The investment appeal, it's one of the only ways to, if everything is done accurately and to USCIS's rules and stipulations, it is one of the only surefire ways to get a green card and to get citizenship.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, Rush. Really appreciate all of that information. And again, a learning process for some, even just to go through. I'm not sure always of the collateral information that gets to a family when they're looking at this investment. I know very much the dream we've heard is broadcast to people, but I think again, understanding sort of the deep dive in a number of the things we're about to walk through with Connor becomes really important in terms of having that fulfilled in the way people envision when they go into it. So a partial list, when you're thinking about, even from a checklist standpoint as a family, of the number of things you're going to be dealing with and how to best navigate them. First and foremost, making sure from an international tax services standpoint that you are now broadening beyond probably your home country individual or firm you've been dealing with. And for some, obviously, you may be dealing with a large firm already, but making sure you are dialed into individuals who are experienced with EB-5, regardless of the size of the firm you're working with, becomes critically important. Making sure that pre-immigration planning is something you're walking through with people who are familiar with the process, specifically for sure with EB-5. And then also making sure you're thinking through what's going to happen when you start to have domestic U.S. tax issues to consider as well. We're going to walk through a brief overview of what some concierge services would look like that you may want to consider. And I point those out simply because I think, Rush, and we were talking about a little bit earlier, some of the challenges families face and may not imagine they'll encounter or be thinking about. So we're going to walk through a number of things, as well as business management and family office services, business process outsourcing. So as you're starting a business, if that's the plan as a family in the U.S., support system for services in those areas. And then also we'll talk just a very little bit about accessing groups such as which Citrin Cooperman is a Moore Stephens firm, where you're able to leverage knowledge and relationships really across the world to make sure that you are getting the ongoing information and support you need. And so from a concierge services standpoint, I'm going to share this because through Citrin Cooperman, families are able to, and let me take a step back and say, through Family Office Association, when you become a member, you have access to the Resource Council. And so whether it is from an accounting perspective or legal or wealth management, the aspect here, because remember, it's a free membership to be able to join and access the community. So there's nothing you're being asked to pay for as a member of FOA and in this customized membership. But knowing that if you need it, you are able to have conversations with Resource Council members. And then should you need to, obviously step off into any individual services you may need. But right now, just having education and resources available about the financial support, bill payment, cash management, banking and brokerage, philanthropy, family governance, each of the areas you see on this slide. The idea of the community is to help provide that grassroots, high level, information to help you just even check things off on your list that you've got them covered. And then again, if you need a deeper level of expertise and need additional support, that's where you certainly have the option to work with any number of the Resource Council members or other referrals, one-to-one. But this is really intended to put these things on your radar to make sure that you're checking them off the list and actually getting them done before some of these can become problems or surprises. And so, Connor, with that, would love to turn over to you. I know obviously you deal with this every day from a deep tax perspective, and you're seeing the things that go well, the things that come up as surprises that can send families into tough places. And so with that, Rush and I'll mute out here, but excited to jump over to you and really talk about what you're seeing in each of these areas.
Thank you, Jennifer. One of the things that's really exciting about our partnership, Citron's partnership with FOA, is that, as Jennifer and Rush alluded to, it really gives us an opportunity to understand, everything that's relevant to our clients throughout the EB5 journey. What I do on the international tax side is very focused, and it's a moment in time, right? So we're primarily concerned with assessing our clients' tax positions before they come to the U.S. to identify problematic areas, generally make their taxation run more efficiently, and then to help them with ongoing compliance. So if we have kind of that tripartite goal, if we can meet each one of those points, generally the pre-immigration planning, like I said, it's done once we assess the situation, but then every year our clients obviously have to file U.S. tax returns. And I think, by nature, the people who get EB5 visas tend to be wealthier. They have assets outside of the U.S. So reporting those things, reporting that income becomes very important on a yearly basis. Because as many of you, I'm sure, already know, the IRS is pretty stringent when it comes to the reporting of foreign assets and income. So we want to make sure that our clients are compliant every year. So identified, if we can go back just one slide, sorry. So some of the main issues we look at, I'm not going to get into too much of the technical stuff here. I think what we see a lot is that the U.S. is pretty unique with respect to how we tax people. So obviously, if you're a citizen or a green card holder, it doesn't really matter where you are in a real sense. We tax you on all your income. You have to report all your assets. So it's really important that our clients understand that, and they understand when they become a U.S. resident. Oftentimes that will be before they're given a green card, or certainly before they have a U.S. passport, just by virtue of the number of the days that they spend here. Another big issue we see a lot is, when people come over, they have a portfolio of assets that have built-in gain. If they were to sell those assets while they're a U.S. person, much to their surprise, the historic gain is going to be taxed. So we try to come up with strategies to mitigate that taxation so that they're not subject to tax on profits which really inured prior to when they came to the U.S. I work primarily on the income tax side, but the U.S. is also unique in that we have 50 states. Many of those states, most of them actually, have their own tax system. So we want to be sure that we address everything holistically, not only on the income tax side, but also on the state and local tax side, as well as on the transfer tax issues, being state and gift tax. We see it quite often where people come over and they become a resident for income tax purposes. but not necessarily for estate tax purposes. But I think with our EB5 investors, just by virtue of the program and the amount of time they're going to spend here and the connections that they build here, it's likely that in some cases they're going to become subject to estate and gift tax on all their assets. And we currently have a pretty healthy exemption. It's 13 million. That's probably going to get cut in half. So it's going to become even more relevant for these people in a year or two's time. All right, you can skip to the next one. Yeah, so I think, as I alluded to before, what we do on the international tax side is really technical. And I know personally that a lot of our clients, whether through EB5 or just regular clients who are coming to the United States, they don't want to get bogged down in the details of what I do on a daily basis, right? So our job is to kind of simplify the rules, allow our clients to understand them, and really understand what their underlying goals are, so that we can use the tax tools at our disposal to help them achieve those goals. Yeah, you can skip to the next one. I'm not going to read line by line. So just generally within our international tax department, aside from pre-immigration planning, which is what I focus on a lot, we also have a suite of, international tax consulting services for individuals, businesses, trusts, investment entities. And then obviously we handle compliance on a yearly basis. So I think with the EB5 investors, it's highly likely that once they come to the United States, they're going to retain ownership of foreign assets. And like I said before, the reporting rules around those assets and that income are very, very complicated. And the penalties for not getting it correct are astronomically high and punitive. So it's important to get our hands around that as soon as we can so that they don't run into these issues. And as Jennifer alluded to before, we are a member of MORE, which is a global affiliation of accounting firms. I think we have presence in just about every country, maybe not Russia at this point, it's a few smaller ones, but to the extent that our clients do have assets or connections to other countries, we really try to understand what their exposure is, not only in the US, but also abroad. For a number of reasons, right? But I think foreign tax credit availability is the primary reason, but we also want to be able to introduce our clients to people who know what they're doing in these other countries so that they get holistic advice.
And so, Connor, I think as we're talking through all this, just to bring forward some of what prompted this and the discussions that have been taking place within, certainly within Citron Cooperman, and then from a family office association front as well, wanting to bring access to the best of certainly the tax planning, the technical work, the support, the business management expertise. We talk a lot on Family Office Association broadcasts about the virtual family office and the virtual family support system. And so one of the things that I really think is exciting about this membership opportunity and about the opportunity to access services either through FOA or independently at Citron Cooperman is that it's now a much more one-stop approach, meaning for families who have wanted and needed the accounting expertise, but also have needs for family office management and this support. Rush and I have had a number of conversations around just needing that health insurance or needing information about visiting school campuses and about, what is all of this about, trying to get your credit reports established, finding a right bank to deal with, and being able to then navigate this housing process. So, but also the steps of being a family office for those who have been used to a support system in their home country and want access to that when they come to the US as well. So just that sense that you're not alone in this. We go back to the discussion about isolation, having a place that you can turn, and really the reason that we brought this forward was wanting to find a place that families could access and say, you know what, I just want help. I don't want to have to do this alone. I don't have to be, fishing for information information, and I don't know what I don't know. So, and I think, Connor, really where this came together recently was a discussion about just go through the checklist, right? Welcoming people to have the conversation with you and go through the checklist of what should happen from the pre-immigration standpoint to the move if you're going through this EB-5 process. And if you've got everything checked and you are content with the world you're living in, then great. But what we're seeing obviously a lot are families saying, oh, I didn't know, or, oh, I had no idea it was going to cost X, or, hey, I moved to the States 6 months ago and I didn't know what the implications would be in this tax year of going through that, or in my next tax year. And so I think, really important. We just want to make sure that people are getting access to the right advice and to the support system they're looking for in the range of services. And so this collaboration and the other participants in the FOA Resource Council and in the broader community really allow us to do that in a special way. So I think, Connor, with you, okay, I know that we're going to post out some of the reference materials that the firm has available. We're going to do that on the FOA front as well. And that way families who are looking for that information, especially, again, the majority of you we know listen to this in a recorded way or and sometimes played a couple times over. So we want to make sure that you get that information. Connor, any closing comments that you want to make sure you share with families who, what is the easiest way for families to prepare? That's one question that has come in. How should someone prepare? Because a lot of times the hesitation is even to have that first conversation with you, because it can feel like a lot. How can someone get a step ahead of being ready to speak with you?
Yeah, so I think before I answer that question, I just want to emphasize again that what's really unique about this partnership between Citron and FOA is that, in my prior life, I've worked at a number of law firms where there are people who, are coming into the U.S. on EB-5s, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of service providers. They deal with an immigration attorney, they deal with a financial advisor, they may deal with a family office person, and then they deal with a tax person. And there's very little communication between those service providers. And I think what this partnership is striving to do is to get rid of that lack of communication and to give our EB-5 clients kind of like a quarterback who can manage the whole process for them. So with respect to what people can do, at least on the tax side, to make the process a little less painful, get a list together of everything that you own. I think that's the most important. All the companies you own, any trusts that you own, any investment accounts, so that we can start analyzing those piece by piece, so that it's not a surprise when you come over 6 months after the fact and you have to file a tax return with all these disclosures on it. You're like, no one ever told me about this. So the sooner that we can get our hands around everything that our clients own and what they do and what they're trying to achieve, the better.
Great. And Rush, any thoughts you have, again, as you navigate? And I know we're going to play the game here with the muting, so jump out. But any thoughts you have based on what you're seeing? I know we had a couple tips, especially in terms of notifications and communication for families making the move, that if I were to leave with one tip, I'm feeling the same one will be top of mind for you, but that we'd share with families.
I think Connor kind of touched on it. Is let's have a group that kind of goes through and works on the nuts and bolts and the things that need to be done, but you may not have the time, you may not have the knowledge, the expertise, and there's going to be enough other, emotional, social, integration, finding schools, things that are really the forefront in a family, and in the day to day, and kind of passing one of the bucks off that you're going to be dealing with seems to make a lot of sense. And again, I think that in the membership in FOA, you can be exposed to a lot of really good information, not just about immigration, but forming relationships with other entrepreneurs and getting the benefit of seeing seeing what they see in the business world or in the market today, and really getting kind of integrated fast. It's, sort of an AP class with really nice teachers. So that'd be my takeaway.
All right. So with that, I think to close out today, what we'll say is that if you are a current FOA member, then within the discussion forums, we're going to post out a number of pieces of information. As you become a member, certainly you remain responsible for the navigation of your journey through this EB5 process. But some of the things we will do, post some quarterly and other updates and just reminders, because communication is so important. I think a lot of what we've learned over time, and you'd all agree, is staying in touch with your professionals, letting them know where you're living, when you've made a move, other financial activities as you have them, and life changes are critically important in terms of being able to have a professional team that can help you at the right time along the way. And so we'll be sharing a lot of that in terms of timelines, checklists, et cetera, through FOA, and then making sure we incorporate the conversations with the other professionals kind of in that circle as well, so that we're really making this a rounded experience for everyone. And again, any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I do see some of the direct messages that I've received, and to the extent that they are about your individual situation, I will be following up and make sure we put you in touch directly. Those, as they are personal things, we don't necessarily want to cover them across the general call, but excited to follow up with you. Thank you very, very much. Connor, thank you for being with us today on the show. And Chloe, thank you for the production, again, especially with slides and your support today. Appreciate it. You can't see Chloe. She stays behind the scenes, but we're always very grateful and lucky to have her. So, and Rush, you and I will be back on next week. We actually have, if you stay tuned to the announcements, we have a couple guests over the next week that I think are going to be fun and a surprise for everyone. And really it'll be highlighting our FOA global levels. So those announcements will come out later today, and look forward to seeing all of you on the show next week. Thanks very much, everyone.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Connor.